As Jeffrey Bixley drove his motorcycle along Ashdown Forest, he decided to stop, stretch his legs, maybe have a drink, and he walked a few meters into the wooded area next to the bike in order to relieve himself behind a tree when he suddenly noticed a piece of blue fabric sticking out from under the earth. He moved it with his foot. A swarm of flies were buzzing around the area, and Jeff got a strong smell of something quite putrid. He decided that it wasn't right and wondered if he'd stumbled upon a hidden body. Maybe not, but he couldn't be sure. So he drove his bike to the local police station, where he told an officer on the desk what had happened, hoping that they would take a look. Jeff showed the officers on the map where this had occurred and even travelled in the police car with the officers to show them what he had found. Police soon realised that this was a body. Initially, officers could not be sure whether it was the body of an animal or a human, but they had to treat it correctly just in case. They took the man's details and cordoned off the area with tape. The detective inspector was summoned to the area along with scenes of crime and forensics. This once quiet area was now swarming with officers and large vehicles. The body had been wrapped in blue fabric and buried under the dirt. Once it was evident that it was in fact a human body, it was slowly unearthed, which took some time as most of the bones were separated and they needed to retrieve as much information and forensic information as possible. It was determined that this was the remains of a female aged between 20 and 40 years of age. Identifying this individual was a top priority, although when police looked through their systems, there were no missing females that would fit the description outstanding, making this a difficult body to identify. Back in this time period, there was no DNA database. Most things were done with a paper and pen. Files were kept in filing cabinets. People didn't have mobile phones or have computer systems or internet like they do today. If, for instance, they could identify the body, who it belonged to, this would usually lead to suspects and witnesses, but police had none of this. Until they could identify her, they needed to work out what they did have. Nearly half a square mile of forest was forensically searched, and the bones and blue fabric were bundled up and sent for forensic examination. Dr. Michael Heath examined the body at Queen's Victoria Mortuary. He found the examination difficult due to the mutilation of the bones. The head had been removed as well as the lower limbs and arms from the shoulders. The cause of this person's demise was from lacerations to the neck, consistent with a sharp instrument like a knife. These injuries were all caused while this lady was still alive. This lady had also been stabbed, and it was said that this lady had given birth at some point in the recent past to at least one child. This lady had an episiotomy scar from a previous procedure and was a blood group O. Although this gave police a lot to go on, they still had no missing person that fit this description. Police needed to speak to any witnesses who may have seen a vehicle parked near this lay-by, so they created roadblocks speaking to drivers who frequented the area. One woman who drove past told the officers that she had seen a three-wheeler car parked in that lay-by with three men lifting something heavy from the boot. It was the strongest lead they had so far. While staff looked into missing persons further afield, part of the incident room was dealing with documenting the owners of every three-wheeler car in the area of Sussex and across the country lines to Surrey. Police started knocking on doors of people with three-wheeler cars. They asked if they could quickly look at the vehicle. This inquiry was time-consuming. Police searched the backs of these cars looking for anything that caught their attention. In the course of this inquiry, over 150 women were either found or eliminated from their inquiry due to them not being the correct height or blood group. But this left 5 women that could have been their victim. There was one woman that they were especially interested in due to the fact that she had gone missing from a women's refuge in Portsmouth. This woman had many tattoos, and police initially wondered if that was why she had been cut up. But police took the inquiry as far as they could and never found her. Police went door to door knocking for witnesses, but by now morale was beginning to reduce and they started to wonder if they would ever work out who she was. Police reached out to Crime Watch to create a reconstruction of what they felt happened. They also decided on one last push, so they made a small police appeal as their demonstration tape. This was played in all TV shops and in the windows to see if anyone would come forward.
That you may be able to help us identify the victim or her killer if you recognise the materials which were used to wrap her. First, these curtains. If you look here, you can see that somebody once took up the hem by hand.
One woman called in after watching the Crime Watch reconstruction, which had shown the blue curtains that the body had been wrapped in. This woman recognised these blue curtains as she'd made them herself. Police visited her home and the lady confirmed that she had sold these pair of blue curtains just like that at a car boot sale in Crawley. After this woman had called in about the blue curtains, the detective inspector felt it had given this case a new outlook and hopefully may lead somewhere. Police swarmed the Crawley car boot sales. There were posters everywhere in Crawley, and one local resident of Crawley reacted in a way that no one saw coming. A man living in the Crawley area, married, and had seen his solicitor to draft a letter to police on his behalf.
Take a letter, please, to Crawley Police Station. We act for Mr. Kassem Lashal of Greenwich Close, Broadfield, Crawley, who has recently been released from Ford Open Prison on parole. Mr. Lashal lives at the above address with his wife and children, and there is another wife who he married in Morocco and who he regards as a common law wife in this country. Her name is Latifa Lazaar, Lazaar, and until recently she was living at Ramsey Court, Broadfield, with her son, who is the son of another man.
Police felt that this was a breakthrough that they'd been waiting for. Could this woman be their Jane Doe? They decided to keep their feet firmly on the ground just in case it was nothing to do with their inquiry, but look further into this woman who, according to Kassem Lashal, it was his wife, Latifa, who'd been missing since mid-August. She was of Moroccan descent. She had a history with police of shoplifting. She was 26 years of age when she had vanished and was 5'3" tall. So police looked to see if she had an immigration file. They looked at any doctors that she may have in Britain, as well as any dental records and hospital records for the birth of her son that she was supposed to have had. Latifa had come to England with her first husband, but had been divorced. 5 years later, she had married Kassem Lashal, but since he already had a wife in England, they travelled to Morocco to get married before travelling back to England. Although Latifa had kept her own home close by in Crawley, the two wives had lived together while Kassem was imprisoned for smuggling the green stuff. Police visited Kassem at his home to discuss his second wife. Police questioned Kassem and his wife as to when they had last seen Latifa. They both agreed that the last time they had seen her was on Sunday the 17th of August at Ramsey Court. Kassem had been released from prison on the 13th of August, just 4 days before Latifa had vanished. When police asked why he had reported her missing, he said that he was worried that he would be linked to her being missing after he had just got out of prison. They had thought that she had gone to Morocco, but when they spoke to relatives, they realised she was not there. Now, there were apparently 5 houses that Latifa had connections to, so officers decided that on Monday they would arrest the occupants of all 5 houses, all of whom had some kind of connection to Latifa, to see what happened next. It was a bit of a gamble. By now, the only thing they had was circumstantial evidence, if that. Even so, Detective Brian Groth could not see any other way of going forward. Most of the other family members were almost immediately released without charge, but now police could hold Kassem and his wife for up to 36 hours before they needed to be charged or released. They were both interviewed separately. Kazam said that the last time he had seen Latifa, she had told him that she was going back to Morocco and wanted a divorce. Police asked him, "Who from?" He said, "Me."
Concerning parts of a female body found in Ashdown Forest, East Grinstead. From my inquiries and from the forensic evidence, I'm satisfied that these human remains are those of Latifa Lazaar. Tell me anything about this lady's disappearance.
The only thing I know that she told me that she's going to Morocco for a divorce.
The first wife was interviewed. They asked her, when was the first time Latifa had said she was going back to Morocco? To which the wife said that on Friday after the dinner party. She told officers that no one else was there, just her and her husband together. At this point, their stories seemed to be very similar. Now, after talking to neighbours, there were differing stories. One story was that she'd gone to Paris, and the one that she'd returned to Morocco for a wedding. So many stories that she had left the country. One officer traipsed around 50 travel agents, asking if anyone that looked like Latifa had purchased a ticket to go anywhere abroad. But there were no reservations with that name on the computer systems or with her description. Fatima, the wife, explained that Latifa had gone back to Morocco on Saturday, although she did not see the tickets, ask where she had booked them, or knew how she had paid for them, explaining that she was going to take her boy with her. They did find out that Kazam had hired a GT Mantra on the Sunday, they say, after Latifa had left for Morocco. Now, the family were going to apparently Littlehampton. According to Kazam, he told officers that they were going to Brighton first and then Littlehampton. He said that he and his first wife, Fatima, and the 2 children were going. He also told officers that Latifa had rubbish that she had left behind and asked him if he could take it to the tip. So they had dropped that off on their way. Now, officers knew that not all of the body had been retrieved and wondered if some of these body parts may have been in the rubbish bags tipped. Police wanted to dig up the whole of the rubbish tip, but forensics explained that the amount of rubbish dumped over the past 2 months would make it completely impossible. Meanwhile, back at the station, Fatima was telling officers that when she woke up on Monday morning, Latifa's child was still at the house. The benefits book and keys had been put through the letterbox, and she had gone without him. She also told police that Latifa had called to say that she was at Heathrow on Monday and was about to fly to Morocco, although detectives discovered that there were no flights from Heathrow to Morocco on that Monday. Fatima rang around trying to get Latifa's first husband's telephone number to get him to come and pick up his son. Now, Latifa had been described as a really good mother. She went nowhere without her son, so detectives said that this sounded odd that she would just abandon him and fly away. A couple of days after Latifa disappeared, Kazam had met up with his brother and Latifa's first husband. Now, Kazam had asked him to take his son back to his house. Latifa had left him, and when asked where she was, they told him that she had gone to France. The father was keen to take his child back, but concerned over taking his son without legal custody and wanted to get child services involved just to be safe. But Kazam did not want to be involved with social services, telling him just to pick his son up ASAP. It was a tense meeting, with the father standing up and saying, "I tell you, I will get a social worker," and stormed out of the pub. But later that day, after speaking to a social worker, he did come and pick his son up. He also agreed to take back all of Latifa's furniture and things that they had bought together when they had first been married. Kazam had told the housing office that Latifa had left for Morocco and was not coming back. The housing office had rented the house out to new tenants. But not long after they had moved in, detectives were knocking on the door and asking to search the house. Police searched the home starting at the front door and working their way through, wondering if this was where Latifa had met her end. Officers asked the new tenants if there was anything strange about the house when they moved in. The woman explained that apart from the blood in the bathroom, everywhere else was okay. This immediately piqued police interest, and forensics came in to examine the whole house, paying close attention to the bathroom. Blood was discovered in the bath and under the bath, with trace amounts splattered on the walls and skirting boards. A small piece of carpet fibre found in the bathroom was forensically examined, along with a similar piece that had been found near the body. These two pieces were a match, and the blood found in the home was a match to Latifa. Forensics were also able to determine that the blue curtains found in the forest with the body were the same as the ones hung here behind Latifa in her home. 5 months after Latifa's body had been found, Qassam was charged with her murder. Police had travelled to Morocco to meet with Latifa's family. The family had received a letter dated after she had gone missing. They saw the writing and believed it was a forgery. They handed it to police, and when forensically examined, it held 5 fingerprints, but none of them were Latifa's. One was Hassam's right thumbprint. Then, just before the trial, a man clearing a path came across a human skull. It turned out to be Latifa's. At trial, there were witnesses who told of how Qassam had given them differing accounts of where Latifa had gone. One witness came forward who described Qassam as a violent man. There was Fatima saying that she'd received a call from Latifa saying that she was at Heathrow, but there were no flights. It was a number of pieces of evidence that made up this case, including the forensic evidence, the curtains belonging to her home, the blood found in her old home, and how Qassam had quickly let go of the home on her behalf soon after she disappeared. On the 24th of March 1988, at Lewes Crown Court, Qassam was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. Fatima, his wife, was acquitted of murder but convicted of perverting the course of justice, in that she helped to dispose of the body and lies afterwards. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison.